Before we get started with Irene Adler, I'm going to explain something that will help give more context. A Scandal in Bohemia was a fin de siècle, a work defined by the social changes taking place at the end of the 19th century. Some of these changes had to do with females' roles in society, for example, the beginning of the women's suffrage movement in England. Also, because of the Industrial Revolution, women were becoming more and more involved in the new economy, largely as laborers, something that would have been denied to them earlier in the century. Having been published in 1891, A Scandal in Bohemia is a great reflection of these social changes, especially in its character Irene Adler. Say hello to Irene Adler. In the modern BBC retelling, Adler has made a career out of being a dominatrix. In other words, in Conan Doyle's original A Scandal in Bohemia, however, Adler simply has sex outside of marriage. In fact, she has a love affair with the King of Bohemia, but while he's still the Crown Prince. As many of you can probably guess, Irene Adler is not exactly the ideal Victorian woman, which makes her sad. Just kidding. She actually seems pretty pleased with herself. And who can blame her? Victorians had some pretty funky ideas about the ideal woman. For example, they believed that the genders were not equal. They believed that men were superior in both physical and intellectual ability. Victorians thought it was the woman's duty to clean and maintain the home. They also thought it was her duty to raise all of the children. Furthermore, they thought a woman either had to be a dutiful housewife or a flashy harlot. For those of you who don't know, that's basically someone who sleeps around. Adler, however, was neither a housewife nor a harlot. She defies Victorian expectations of women throughout A Scandal in Bohemia. Though Adler doubtless has numerous noteworthy qualities, perhaps her greatest is her cunning and intellect, which by Victorians was perceived as being exclusively male. Adler actually becomes the first person to ever beat Sherlock Holmes, who is commonly regarded as maybe the smartest person ever at his own game. Also, unlike in other Holmes stories with female characters, Adler does not simply exist to channel male power. She further refuses to submit to the so-called male power by initially refusing to marry. When she does eventually marry, she does so out of her own choice and for her own reasons. To further cement Adler's deviation from Victorian norms in this regard, she often wears clothing regarded as masculine. Another detail of Adler's nonconformity occurs within the story as a whole. In Victorian times, women were believed to be secretive, while men were not believed to be so. However, in A Scandal in Bohemia, the male characters are actually the ones being secretive. An example of this would be the disguises that the king and Holmes wear during the story. A final disparity between Adler and the Victorian expectations of females is her promiscuous attitude. When it came to women, Victorian ideals were very prudish, more so than they were for males. They thought that a woman had to be a virgin to be good and pure. Irene Adler is many things, but a virgin is not one of them. This is apparent from her love affair with the king, though he wasn't king at the time. Clearly, Adler did not have any problems with not conforming to the oppressed sexuality of women in the Victorian age. In her time, Irene Adler was likely regarded as a soulless and appropriate woman, especially by the male population. However, it is easier to see in these more modern times as she was simply a character ahead of her century. As a woman who did not conform to the roles her society had for her, Irene Adler is neither housewife nor harlot. Instead, she is somewhere in between as a brainy, resourceful, self-reliant woman. If any of you had some misconceptions about Adler's character, hopefully this character analysis has opened your eyes even a little, or at least made you reconsider what you thought you knew. Thank you for watching, and have a warm, happy, relaxing summer.
Created using Powtoon.